March 8, 1971. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier are trading punches in Madison Square Garden, and every television in America is pointed at that ring, including, as it turns out, the FBI's. While the country stares at the fight, 8 people pick the locks on a bureau field office in Media, Pennsylvania. They walk out with more than 1,000 classified files. Nobody would learn their names for 43 years. What they carried out that night would force the FBI to answer on the record for what its agents had actually been doing all those years. And the answer had nothing to do with organized crime. What they found inside wasn't mob ledgers or wiretap transcripts on the mafia. Among the files they found were documents revealing the FBI's COINTELPRO program, which authorized agents to disrupt and discredit groups the Bureau deemed threatening. No court order behind it, no crime required, just a director's signature and a code name nobody outside that building had ever heard: COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO, the FBI's secret surveillance program, targeted numerous groups across decades, including communist organizations and later civil rights leaders. A tidy little Cold War errand. Except Hoover couldn't leave it there. Hoover expanded his surveillance apparatus to target civil rights activists and leaders across the country who challenged the status quo, who'd been publicly needling the Bureau for doing nothing while Black Americans turned up dead. Hoover used various tactics to discredit and neutralize those he viewed as threats to the nation's security. The first entry on a list that would not stop growing. By 1963, that list had its biggest name yet. King stood in front of the Lincoln Memorial and delivered the speech that made him a household face, and Assistant Director William Sullivan watched the reaction with something closer to alarm than pride. FBI officials, including those in leadership, developed plans to undermine King's influence and effectiveness as a civil rights leader through various surveillance and discrediting tactics. That was the professional version, dressed up in bureau language. Alone with President Johnson, Hoover dropped the memo voice entirely. According to declassified documents, the FBI sought to create divisions between Black leadership figures and civil rights organizations to weaken their movements. Not neutralize, not discredit, kill. The operation would run far longer than anyone in 1956 could have guessed, quietly spanning presidencies and generations of American political life. The FBI's COINTELPRO program eventually targeted a broad range of organizations and activists across the political spectrum, far beyond its original scope. One group absorbed the bulk of the Bureau's attention, and the math is lopsided enough to double-check. That attention had a body count. The FBI's surveillance programs coincided with violent confrontations between law enforcement and Black Panther leaders during this period. He wasn't a target on paper anymore. Critics and investigators have raised questions about the FBI's role in operations that resulted in deaths of Black Panther leaders during this period. Across the country, that same list caught another Panther leader, Geronimo Pratt, convicted in Los Angeles of a murder he swore he never committed. The man who put him away wasn't a witness. He was a paid informant. Untangling that lie under oath would take decades nobody had. They didn't just walk in. For weeks, they'd cased that field office like it owed them money, clocking shift changes, waiting for the one night the whole country would be looking elsewhere. Fight night gave them their window. Inside, they picked a lock the Bureau had trusted for years and walked out with 2 suitcases of paper, the same haul, stamped over and over with a word the country had never seen in print: COINTELPRO. So they mailed the files straight to the press, and the press blinked. Reporters at several major papers got their own copies, unsolicited, and mostly did nothing with them. Editors weighed a documented federal program against the safety of agents still in the field, and the safety concern won. The story just sat there, verified, explosive, and unpublished in newsroom drawers across the country. The Post didn't blink. Its reporters ran the files down, confirmed they were real, and put the story where no editor before them would: the front page. That morning was the first time anyone outside a federal building read the code name in print. The word that had governed the Bureau's conduct for years, suddenly sitting next to the weather report. Once one paper said it out loud, everyone else had permission to say it too. Every outlet that followed the Post's lead ran the same handful of pages. Nobody had actually read the rest of the suitcase. Somewhere in a drawer that wasn't the Post's sat hundreds more documents nobody had opened yet, the difference between a scandal and the full shape of one. The country thought it had the story. It only had the cover page. For a program that consumed only a sliver of the Bureau's total workload, it would occupy an outsized share of the country's attention for decades to come. The rest of that suitcase surfaced a year later, when a war resisters journal called Win magazine printed the whole thing, cover to cover, no redactions, no draw. Once someone finally sat down and read all 1,000+ pages instead of the highlights, the math got embarrassing fast. Organized crime, the Bureau's supposed bread and butter, accounted for one sliver out of every 100 documents. Watching American citizens for their politics ate up 40 times that share. The nation's premier crime-fighting agency had spent its files mostly on speeches, not stick-ups. Congress couldn't unsee that math either. By 1975, the Senate stood up its own inquiry, the Church Committee, with one job: find out exactly what the FBI and CIA had actually been doing while nobody was watching. After the Church Committee investigation, oversight mechanisms were established, though questions remained about whether similar surveillance practices continued under different frameworks. Despite the revelations about illegal FBI activities, accountability measures and prosecutions remained limited in the years that followed. Charging the burglars meant putting the theft on trial, which meant putting the files on trial. which meant a courtroom forced to catalogue, line by line, exactly what the FBI had done to earn them. Pratt's clock had been running since that same list caught him, and it would take decades to stop. The man who'd testified against him turned out to be exactly what Hoover's memo had promised: an informant lying under oath, doing the neutralizing the Bureau asked for. After his release, Pratt maintained his assertions of innocence regarding the charges for which he had been imprisoned. They kept quiet for a very long time, and here's the punchline: there was nothing to hide. When Betty Metzger's book and Johanna Hamilton's documentary finally put names to 5 of the 8 in 2014, nobody found master spies or seasoned radicals with a manifesto. They found a physics professor, a cab driver, a couple of parents who worried about being home in time for their kids. No ideology to sell, no book deal waiting, no cause beyond the one they'd already finished. Just people who did the thing, then went back to their ordinary lives and said nothing for the rest of their lives on principle. 3 of the 8 are still to this day nobody. No book deal, no documentary cameo, no deathbed confession, just a permanent blank where a name should be. In subsequent decades, questions emerged about whether the FBI employed similar tactics in terrorism investigations, with critics pointing to cases where informants appeared to guide suspects toward criminal activity. Different decade, different acronym, same rubric: investigation. The 8 burglars' action exposed FBI illegality, and while their identities eventually became public, the complex legal and historical legacy of their actions has remained a matter of ongoing discussion and reappraisal. The committee that caught the FBI didn't stop there. It also turned toward the NSA, and that file is still mostly unopened.